I'm pleased that Nadhim Zahawi has agreed with that approach and has agreed to fully cooperate with that investigation.
Opposition parties have raised questions on Zahawi's tax payments. The alleged tax evasion relates to Zahawi's controversial multi-million-pound shareholding in the polling company YouGov. Zahawi has come under fire over claims that he tried to avoid tax payments. Just on Saturday, Zahawi came out with a carefully worded statement saying an error in his tax affairs is accepted by His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, also known as the HMRC, as careless and not deliberate. Zahawi paid the tax which he owed, as well as a 30% penalty, with the total settlement amounting to about $5.2 million. Labour leaders are calling the issue corrosive to public trust, as the Chancellor, who is entrusted to ask the public to pay their taxes, has failed to do so himself. Zahawi's ally said that earlier he will not quit his position. While taking over the Downing Street office last year, Rishi Sunak had taken responsibility to restore integrity and professionalism after the scandals under Boris Johnson and the economic chaos of Liz Truss. But scandals like this continue to cast a cloud over a big gap between what Sunak promised and what's playing out. And for more on this, we were earlier joined by Dr. Nigel Fletcher. He's a political analyst and politician historian at King's College from London. Listen in to his insights.
Well, I think this is starting to look like a familiar pattern, isn't it? I think, if you look in political history, it's striking to think that, this is a government that, as you say, was begun with the promise of having greater integrity, and that's quite a high bar for a government to set itself. And I think this is a familiar pattern we're starting to see now, that you have, as you say, calls for a minister to resign, you have the referral to an independent inquiry, you have the Prime Minister sort of gravely saying that they want to get all of the facts. We've seen this pattern many times before, and I think it does seem to be leading towards the inevitable resignation. But the wider problem is that, of course, this is not the first of these issues we've had under Rishi Sunak's government, and you have to almost feel a bit sorry for him that these things are not attacks on him personally. These are things that are occurring in relation to some of his ministers, and of course the scandal, which we might talk about in a moment, about Boris Johnson as well. These are things which predate his administration. But I think once he's set that bar, once he's said that you're going to be a government that has integrity and accountability, it is something that he then has to meet. And that's the problem that he's got here. So whilst the drumbeat from the media starts to sort of move towards that inevitable call for resignations here, he's now referred it for an investigation. I think he'll be hoping that the facts are gathered quite quickly to enable him to move on from this.
And troubles continue to grow for Conservative Party chairperson Nadhim Zahawi, who is accused of tax avoidance, as also the guest just now has mentioned. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has asked for an independent probe as we speak, and this is amounting a lot of pressure from the opposition on the current government. And for more on this, we are being joined by our correspondent Alex Isaac from London. Welcome to the broadcast. Now, as we were telling our viewers as well, scandal like this is unmasking a big gap between what Sunak promises and what's actually playing out in London. What are you hearing from 10 Downing, Alex?
Well, absolutely. Now, the issue of what he said about integrity was after Nadhim Zahawi said last year that there was no issues with HMRC, that it had been dealt with, that there wasn't any problems. So now that Rishi Sunak has come face to face with this statement, we understand that he only found out this weekend. So he's now coming to terms with what exactly does that mean. But it looks like when he made that statement back last year, that he wasn't expecting even more problems within his own government. And Caroline Noakes, their Conservative MP, did say yesterday that she believes that Zahawi's career is hanging by a thread and that he really should resign. And we do understand that a lot of the others within his own party are feeling the same way as well. Obviously, he was Chancellor of the Exchequer when this all came about last year, and that was under Boris Johnson's government. But now it's Rishi Sunak's time to show that he is a strong Prime Minister and to do something about it. Putting the ethics team and making an inquiry doesn't seem to be that he's making a stand. He's had a lot of problems within his own government since he came into power. We had the bullying claims, we've had Suella Braverman and the privacy issues, and this is just another problem for him. So it is time that he does make a stand, and a lot of his own party members are suggesting that maybe he is not really the right person to do the job if he doesn't try and cut off the dead weight right now.
All right, thank you for all those insights. That was our correspondent Alex Izad reporting live from London. Now the image of Prime Minister Sunak and the Conservative Party is at stake. Beyond the tax evasion row around Tory chairperson Nadhim Zahawi, as we just told you, another financial scandal is looming over 10 Downing. In the latest, the opposition Labour Party wants an investigation into financial guarantees given by millionaire Richard Sharp to 10 Downing Street during Boris Johnson's tenure. Johnson had recommended Sharp on the top job in the BBC. The Labour Party has written to the Parliamentary Commissioner on the matter, and this comes after a report published in the Sunday Times that Richard Sharp was involved in the talks to help fund the Johnson's lifestyle when he was undergoing a financial difficulty late in 2020. Now, according to the report, Sharp introduced Canadian businessman Sam Blyth, and before the loan was completed, Johnson, Sharp and Blyth then had dinner at a restaurant. Richard Sharp was picked as UK government's choice for the BBC role in January of 2021, and Sharp was also once Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's boss at Goldman Sachs. He also served as an economic advisor to Johnson when he was Mayor of London. A spokesperson for Johnson dismissed the report as rubbish and said that Johnson's financial arrangements have been properly discussed and also declared. And for more on this, we were earlier joined by Dr. Nigel Fletcher, political analyst and political historian at King's College from London.
Yes, indeed. And as you say, it is a reminder of the sort of Boris Johnson administration and all of the problems that he had with standards. One thing it's worth noting, actually, in relation to Nadhim Zahawi's predicament is that the Prime Minister has been able to refer that to his independent ethics advisor. Well, of course, he only has an ethics advisor because he appointed one. Boris Johnson was several months without one because two of his had resigned in protest at the conditions that they were working under. They didn't feel they were able to continue. So I think that, you know, we have a contrast with the Boris Johnson administration, with Rishi Sunak coming in, pledging a government of integrity and accountability, wanting to be different to Boris Johnson. And now he's got this this latest revelation that there is an issue around Boris Johnson's appointment of the BBC chair. So this is not going to be a welcome reminder for him of his former next-door neighbour's presence. And it's not great for Boris Johnson either, who we're told is sort of considering his future in politics and believing that he might have one. I think that, you know, this is another one of those stories that that sort of start to create a picture in the public's mind. And this is where I think the historical illusion comes in here, that you have a government that is sort of, feeling as though it's ending its term. It's getting on towards sort of the sort of 12th, 13th year of government. And it does start to look like those sort of previous Conservative governments, particularly those of that of John Major in the 1990s, where this word sleaze became associated with John Major and the Conservatives at that time. And with sort of constant scandals, constant allegations, constant referrals to the standards advisor, and then resignations. You know, we had a lot of that under Boris Johnson. It's now continuing under Rishi Sunak. And so the problem for him is the fresh start that he hoped to be able to begin as Prime Minister on the steps of number 10, saying that he wanted a government of integrity and accountability different to Boris Johnson. Now he's got all of these scandals, including Boris Johnson.
Staying with the United Kingdom, as the cost of living crisis cloud and record high double-digit inflation looms over the country, a new study has exposed how inflation has hit the poorest the most. According to a new study by Retail Economics, UK's poorer households have almost $49 a month less spare cash than they did a year ago. Meanwhile, the wealthiest 20% of households had $44 a month more in optional income in December of last year. Now, this is as they witness record earnings growth, which offset rising energy and also food bills. The study also recorded a 16.5% inflation for those at the bottom end of the income cycle. As they spend two-thirds of their income on essentials such as food and energy, and the inflation remained at 13.3%. According to Chief Executive of Retail Economics, people with less cash to spare are turning to shopping in physical stores in order to keep a close eye on spending and avoid additional costs of delivery and return fees. The figures reveal the uneven impact in the rising cost of living crisis in the United Kingdom, as less households are spending a bigger proportion of their income on essential items such as food and energy bills. In December, the food price inflation averaged at about 13.3%, and this, according to the British Retail Consortium latest figure, hundreds of thousands of people are struggling to pay electricity and gas bills. Massive infrastructure damage in Ukraine with the Russian onslaught is not last of the country's problems. High level of corruption charges have hit senior officials. The deputy head of Ukraine's presidential office has quit after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky promised a complete cleanup. The departure of senior officials includes the resignation of the deputy prosecutor general, a deputy head of the president's office, and a deputy defense minister. According to a senior advisor to the Ukrainian president, Zelensky's personal decisions testify to the key priorities of the state. The president's office accepted the resignation of Kyrylo Tymoshenko as its deputy head. The 33-year-old Ukrainian politician worked on Zelensky's election campaign and had been in his post since 2019. His main responsibility was to oversee Ukraine's regions and regional policies. Tymoshenko gave no reason for his exit. Now, Tymoshenko has also been criticized by the media for driving sports car during the Russian invasion. He is also among the officials linked to the embezzlement of humanitarian aid worth more than $7 million for the southern Zaporizhzhia region. But the former Ukrainian official denied any wrongdoing, as he said the vehicles were rented. But Tymoshenko is not the only one who has been criticized for his actions during the war. Former Deputy Prosecutor General Oleksiy Simonenko, criticized by media outlets for a 10-day New Year holiday with his family in Marbella in Spain, despite the ongoing war in Ukraine. Deputy Defense Minister has also resigned after a Ukrainian media report accused the Defense Ministry of paying inflated prices for supplies of food. However, the ministry denied the allegations, but is also welcomed the move by the minister as it would help retain trust in the ministry. Just in July, Zelensky removed the head of the SBU Security Service and the State Prosecutor General. The president said that the officials failed to root out traitors in their organizations. Britain's Crown Estate, an independent commercial business that manages the property portfolio belonging to the monarchy, has begun court proceedings against Twitter. Now, these are over the alleged unpaid rent on its London headquarters. The Crown Estate is run by an independent board and boasts a collection of commercial buildings and land which generate profits that are collected by the British government for public spending. The case against Twitter had been filed at the High Court in London last week. In a statement, the Crown Estate, which owns some of the most expensive land in central London, said that the action related to rental areas on the social media platform's office space in the British capital. Twitter laid off half of its workforce after it was taken over by Elon Musk just last October. In London, the office was left deserted and any evidence that Twitter had once occupied the building were erased. Apart from Crown Estate, Twitter currently faces at least one other lawsuit over unpaid rent. A commercial landlord is suing Twitter for breach of contract after the company allegedly failed to pay rent for one of its offices in San Francisco. Over to sports now. Frank Lampard has been sacked as head coach of Premier League side Everton. After less than a year in charge of Goodison Park, Everton finally pulled the plug after a defeat to West Ham, which leaves them second from bottom in the table. The 44-year-old had replaced Rafael Benitez in January last year, and he was able to steer the team away from relegation in the final week of the 21-22 season. However, the Merseyside club's performances this season have been poor, to say the least. They have just 3 wins out of 20 matches in this season and are in real danger of getting relegated. The Toffees are only above bottom place Southampton on goal difference. Lampard's sacking was imminent, with the club losing 9 out of their last 12 Premier League matches. The former Chelsea manager's departure comes only 10 days after owner Farhad Moshiri publicly backed him. Everton are now looking for their 6th full-time manager in 5 years. Former Leeds boss Marcelo Bielsa is the favourite to replace Lampard. Delhi-based designer Rahul Mishra is the first Indian designer to be included in the official calendar at Haute Hotel Weeks in Paris at the Hotel Western Paris. Rahul represented a beautiful show around the theme of the cosmos. We leave you with this report. More Global News continues on the other side.
Like 3 hours ago, and I'm so glad this was my first one. I love him as a designer. I'm such a fan. I hope I get to meet him. I just feel like all of his structures and the sparkles, there's such intention behind what he does. The fact that he does a lot of sustainable like design and fashion is like really important to me, and like I don't feel like I just got off the plane and I'm super jet lagged in this, so like yeah.
Gifted with craftsmanship, and craftsmanship is not just about a technique that they know how to make it. They are also innate artists, and they get excited when they're challenged. They get excited when you make them participate into something completely new which you're doing. And I'm sure this video, when they see, they are going to be really exciting. They're going to have a party tomorrow.